So I would imagine most of you watching are probably already familiar with Olive Garden. It's a popular Italian chain restaurant here in the United States. For whatever reason, the internet has a long history of dunking on this particular restaurant. It's one of those places that's clearly trying to be fancier than it really is. I mean, the food is okay, but it's kind of one of those places where I'll only go if like an extended family member gives me a gift card at a Christmas party or something. It's not necessarily bad, it's just middle of the road, kind of meh. Olive Garden in many ways is a meme, particularly on Reddit. They like to make fun of people who think Olive Garden is some sort of fancy restaurant, asserting that people who regularly enjoy eating there are classless heathens. And this sentiment is what leads us to the topic of today's video. In 2012, an 85-year-old woman would write a positive review about her experience dining at a North Dakota Olive Garden. This would lead to thousands online mocking and patronizing her for the positive review she left, with only an intervention from Anthony Bourdain stopping the harassment.
I wrote a review of the Olive Garden, which opened in Grand Forks, and minding my own business, and all of a sudden there were just hundreds of emails and phone calls, and someone told me I'd gone viral. I didn't know what that meant.
Oh hey look, it's me, standing in the kitchen. So rather than making the trip to Olive Garden tonight, I decided to do Italian at home. And what's on the wavywebsurf menu? A frozen pizza. Well, not literally, it's been cooked, but you know what I mean. And you know what pairs nicely with frozen pizza? Something that can really add a bit of dignity to this meal? Some delicious red wine. Courtesy of the sponsor of today's video, Bright Cellars. Bright Cellars is a monthly wine club for wine enthusiasts across the spectrum, from relative newbies like myself to wine connoisseurs. It works like this: simply fill out the quiz on the Bright Cellars website. The quiz will ask for your personal taste preferences, whether you like red or white, and when you typically drink wine. Based off your input, they'll pair you up with a few bottles of wine most compatible with your choices and ship them right to your front door. You get bottles sourced from all over the world, and honestly, I prefer this to randomly guessing at a wall of wines at a local supermarket. I like this Vanishing Act red wine, so next time I may build a box based off wines similar to it. You guys can get 50% off your first 6-bottle box by clicking the link down below in the description box. Want to give a big shout out to Bright Cellars for sponsoring? Now let's get on to the story. To begin, I want to introduce you all to the setting of today's story. Grand Forks, North Dakota. Boasting a humble population of approximately 50,000, residents of this somewhat isolated Midwestern city have long enjoyed a quiet, unassuming, and community-focused existence. To give you a better idea of what living in Grand Forks is like, I want to show you some of the tourist attractions listed on its tourism website. Grand Forks offers can't-miss experiences such as Bob's Oil Company, the American Legion Cafe, and of course their state-of-the-art AMC movie theater. Yeah, Grand Forks is keeping it humble, and with these examples shown, I think you can begin to understand why the people living in Grand Forks may be a little bit excited when they heard that Olive Garden was coming to town. And this is exactly what happened in February of 2012.
Garden's new stuffed shells with shrimp and a creamy seafood sauce, or with sausage and Alfredo, starting at $9.95 at Olive Garden.
With lots of spaghetti.
In late February, Olive Garden, the undisputed king of franchise Italian fare, would be blessing Grand Forks with all of its Alfredo sauce-laden glory. And when opening day came, you could bet your bottom dollar that Grand Forks' own most esteemed culinary critic would be present to try out the exotic flavors provided by the chain.
I'd like to try the classic lasagna. Got some nice sharp tastes to it. Time has come for dessert.
Meet Marilyn Hagerty. Age 85 at the time of this story, she was a columnist for the city's most popular newspaper, the Grand Forks Herald. For over 20 years, she had written a segment called the Eat Beat, in which she would review restaurants around the local area. Essentially the sweet geriatric version of the Report of the Week, Hagerty's column mostly detailed her experiences dining at franchise chains. While some critics may consider the act of reviewing a chain restaurant redundant or beneath them, Hagerty enjoyed these sorts of eateries. She had given positive reviews to a local Subway, McDonald's, and even Taco Bell. And Grand Forks' newly opened Olive Garden was next on the list to be reviewed. Shortly after the new Grand Forks Olive Garden opened, Hagerty would make her way to the restaurant and enjoy a meal. Afterwards, she would write a review for it, which was overwhelmingly positive. It's a pretty long and detailed review, but here are the highlights. My first visit to Olive Garden was during mid-afternoon, so I could be sure to get in. After a late breakfast, I figured a late lunch would be fashionable. The place is impressive. It's fashioned in Tuscan farmhouse style with a welcoming entryway. There is seating for those who are waiting. It had been a few years since I ate at the older Olive Garden in Fargo, so I studied the two manageable menus offering appetizers, soups and salads, grilled sandwiches, pizza, classic dishes, chicken and seafood, and filled pastas. At length, I asked my server what she would recommend. She suggested chicken Alfredo, and I went with that. Instead of the raspberry lemonade she suggested, I drank water. The chicken Alfredo, $10.95, was warm and comforting on a cold day. The portion was generous. My server was ready with Parmesan cheese. As I ate, I noticed the vases and planters with permanent flower displays on the ledges. There were several dining areas with arched doorways, and there's a fireplace that adds warmth to the decor. On a summer day, I will try the raspberry lemonade that was recommended. All in all, it is the largest and most beautiful restaurant now operating in Grand Forks. It attracts visitors from out of town as well as people who live here.
The North Dakota woman who's been writing columns for 50 years, but never has one of her restaurant reviews captured this much attention.
Somehow this seemingly innocuous and most certainly wholesome Olive Garden review would cause Marilyn to become the target of online mockery. Marilyn's review was first criticized by a food blogger in Colorado who would set the patronizing tone which would be shared amongst food critics in regards to Marilyn and her review. This critic says, "Did you know there was a line at the Olive Garden in Grand Forks through February? Marilyn Hagerty does. She is about the cutest food blogger ever. And if my own grandma didn't already love the Olive Garden, I would adopt Marilyn as my excuse to go to the Olive Garden. She ordered chicken Alfredo and a water. She turned down the raspberry lemonade. Who goes to the Olive Garden and turns down the raspberry lemonade? Apparently the Grand Forks Herald needs to up her stipend." Another blogger called her review unwittingly hilarious and joked, "I just hope a Popeyes never moves into the neighborhood. Otherwise everyone's heads may explode like that famous gif from Scanners." Marilyn's Olive Garden review would eventually make its rounds on Reddit, where neckbeards would share personal anecdotes and jokes regarding her seemingly over-enthusiastic review of the chain restaurant. A while ago, I was standing at the Taco Bell at the mall waiting for my food when an elderly lady came up beside me to talk to the manager. Her purpose? To send her compliments to the chef because it was the best quesadilla she had ever had. That's adorable. Quote, "Instead of the raspberry lemonade she suggested, I drank water," end quote. Well, it was a late lunch. Can't get too crazy before dinner. Bro, you got the whole squad laughing with that one. Within days of Marilyn's interview being posted, it seemed like everyone and their grandma had something to say or some sort of joke to crack about it. Because I guess it's a cardinal sin to actually enjoy Olive Garden. I mean, don't get me wrong, Olive Garden isn't my favorite place to eat or anything, but I consider it to be a perfectly fine establishment. I think a lot of the snark thrown in Marilyn's direction was rooted in a lack of understanding of what it's like living in a smaller city or town. You aren't surrounded by five-star dining options. Hell, you aren't surrounded by many options in general. And people genuinely get excited when a new restaurant comes to town, and there's nothing wrong with that. With Marilyn's Olive Garden review now viral, her column on the Grand Forks Herald website was getting upwards of 10,000 page visits per day. And she personally was getting inundated with emails, with feedback both positive and negative. She would first address her viral fame in an interview with the Village Voice. Here she claps back at her haters. "I may sound a little on the defensive to you today because of the emails I've received. One was kind of snotty, but the other 4 or 5 were kind of friendly. But my daughter tells me I should go on Facebook and read all of this crap. And I do not have time to let myself be bothered or read all of that stuff. I have a Sunday column I'm doing now about a completely different subject. I don't have time to sit here and twit over whether some self-styled food expert likes or does not like my column. The publisher likes it." Marilyn seemed mostly unfazed by the jokes that were coming her way, And she really didn't need any emotional support throughout this, but whether she wanted it or not, she got some. This support came from late famed American celebrity chef Anthony Bourdain. Anthony Bourdain would praise Marilyn for her response to all the attention, tweeting this out on March 8th of 2012. Very much enjoying watching internet sensation Marilyn Hagerty triumph over the snarkologists, myself included. This wouldn't be the only time Bourdain and Hagerty would cross paths. Anthony would invite her to New York City. There, they met and tried out restaurants around town. This resulted in not only a friendship, but a business deal. Anthony offered Marilyn a book deal, wherein she would publish her nearly 30 years of food reviews for the Grand Forks newspaper into one book. This book is called Grand Forks, A History of American Dining. This is a clip of Anthony speaking highly of Marilyn, and it's pretty heartwarming to say the least.
Tell us about this woman who, 85 years old, she did this review, and you saw it and loved it.
Marilyn Hagerty wrote from the Grand Forks, North Dakota Press, wrote a small article, a review of the new Olive Garden opening up in her neighborhood. And of course, it became sort of an immediate viral sensation. People were putting it up as the most hilarious and mockable review ever. And of course, that was my first instinct as a New Yorker, as somebody who's eaten all over the world, to sneer. And then her reaction was, I don't know, so dignified and
genuine,
genuine, and the review itself was so heartfelt. And this is a woman who's been reporting for the paper, 5 columns, I think, for 30 years. I thought, wow, she's making us all look bad. This is the way much of America eats, and I just thought, actually, this body of work, these 30 years of reviews of dining in North Dakota, is in a sense a history of dining in America, and I thought, I want to publish this person, and in fact, I will be doing just that.
So you guys are going to work together with a book deal. Very nice.
Yes, I'm meeting with her later today.
Very nice.
After the Anthony Bourdain co-sign, Marilyn became less of a target of online mockery and more of a beloved living meme that the mainstream media couldn't get enough of. Marilyn's book would go on to sell thousands of copies, and she continues to write reviews for the Grand Forks Herald to this day. Looking back, she is very grateful for all the attention and opportunities granted to her by this Olive Garden review, and she is most grateful for what Anthony Bourdain did. Shortly after Anthony's passing in 2018, she had this to say about his upstanding character. He spoke up for me at a time when people all over the country were making great fun of the column I write. To have a man of his stature to rise up and befriend me, it meant a lot to me. You know, sometimes you go through life and you think about all the wonderful things that happen to you. And one of the wonderful things that happened to me was when Anthony Bourdain spoke up for me and wanted to publish my columns in a book. And in regards to his death, she said, "It's sad, shocking news." And that, my friends, is the wholesome, heartwarming story of Marilyn Hagerty's Olive Garden review. Shout out to Anthony Bourdain. Dude is really a legend for stepping in and helping out this lady in a time of need. Let me know what you guys thought about this video down below, and let me know who or what you want me to talk about next. Want to give a major shout out to my patrons. I appreciate you guys. Wavywebsurf out. Peace.